Hello and welcome to my September wrap up where I talk about all of the books that I read in September. I am very pleased to say that after several months of barely reading anything, it felt like I had a really good reading month in September. So I ended up reading a grand total of 9 books. One was a bit of a skim read, I'm going to be honest, but we'll talk about that towards the end of the video because I don't really want to talk about it now. But I had such a good reading month. I'm so happy. I think I've finally broken whatever was going on in the last couple of months. It definitely helped that I had a week off work, over a week off work actually, in September for my anniversary, so I was able to focus on reading. And then after I went back to work, I was thinking I was doing so well with my reading and I would actually hate for work to put me off again and put me back into a slump, so I made such an effort to read in the evenings. And it really worked out because I read some really good stuff and I didn't get into a slump. It was just a really, really good time. So I'm so pleased with myself. I just wanted to brag a little bit that I did it. I'm in a much better reading place now, so I'm hoping I can carry that into October. But I would first like to talk to you guys about the books that I read in September, and there were a bunch of good ones, so let's get started. I'm just trying to figure out where from this pile I should start. I think what I'm going to do first is talk about Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So I have been reading this one for a reading vlog about witches. I'm still only like half confident that reading vlog will be published or uploaded because I'm really bad at finishing vlogs. I always start them, but I never seem to wrap them up. So you may or may not see that. But this book is featured in that. So what this is about is there are 5 friends who are all witches. They all grew up together, and one of them in particular is the head of this government branch which is called Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Witches in the UK, or in the world actually, are a secret from normal people. There's this branch of the government to help the witches kind of lay low and not disrupt, make sure they don't disrupt normal humans. A few years back there was a massive war between witches and warlocks. Typically witches are more powerful than warlocks, but one warlock in particular started getting demons and stuff involved because he wanted all the power, and then some witches went over to that side as well, including one of the childhood best friends who is called Kira. We don't really know much about her in this book, but her twin sister Neve is one of the main characters in this, and I would say like the main character in this. The book is definitely focusing on her, and I absolutely love Neve, by the way. But let me just finish talking about the plot first. Basically what happens is the witches have this kind of prophecy which talks about the Sullied Child, who's this like all-powerful being, and when the Sullied Child turns up, apparently demons are going to go like wild and it's going to be like the end of days. And then at the beginning of the book there's a child who appears who they think is the Sullied Child. At first the witches of Her Majesty's Royal Coven lock up Theo, and Neve is like, do you mind? Theo's just a child, can we not? And Theo goes to live with Neve. And that's the start of like many cracks in the witches' friendship, and you start learning more about the war that happened, about Kira. People start to kind of lose their shit. This is honestly such a good book. I loved it. I gave this one 5 stars actually. It was so good. Juno Dawson I think wrote this, or I get the impression she wrote this in a response to the TERFs like J.K. Rowling, and it's a very like loud, somewhat angry at times book, all about womanhood, trans rights, powerful women, and I absolutely loved it. It was absolutely fantastic, really fast paced. I couldn't stop reading it. By the time I was done with this one, I also picked up the second book from the library because I just couldn't get enough of these friendships. This one, it has a very different feel. This is the Shadow Cabinet book 2, and I rated this one 3.5 stars, so a bit of a drop from the first book because it has such a different vibe. So we follow different characters in this one mostly, and there's one character in particular who I feel has been pointless in both of these books, and I feel really bad saying that. I don't even want to say who she is in case there are like spoilers or people start shouting at me. The author seems to have just sent her off in this one on a really pointless mission, just to give her something to do, because I don't think Juno Dawson has a very good plan for her. So that really annoyed me, and it took up a bunch of pages unnecessarily. What was I saying? Yes, very different vibe for reasons that I can't really go into. And it kind of dragged. I feel like this book could have been 100 pages shorter. It's over 500 pages, like 520 or so, and it definitely could have been shorter. I feel like if they had edited it down to maybe like 400 pages, that would have been a good length, and we could have maybe given that character that I was talking about something better to do. But in both of these books I really enjoyed like the small town village life, really enjoyed the domestic drama, really enjoyed the fact that there was a new generation of witches to introduce to all of this witchy stuff, and I really enjoyed reading about the family dynamics as well, because that's a very important part in both of these books. We did learn more about Kira in this one, which I loved. I think Kira might be my second favourite character, if not my favourite, and there were some twisty turns and stuff in this one as well that I had no idea were going to happen. I messaged my friend Justine, who has read these, and was like, are you joking? I'm like, where did this come from? And it's not that it came out of nowhere, like the seeds were there. After it happened, I was like going back and rethinking about all of these scenes, and it made so much sense. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. So yeah, really solid series so far. I gave this one 5 stars, this one 3.5 stars, and I'm hoping to read Queen Bee, which is the sequel, in October, because I'm not going to quite get to it in September. Starts a little stack behind me. What do I want to talk about next? Let's talk about the other series that I was focusing on. So I read 6 Crimson Roses and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is a title that I can never remember. Like, who chose this? Probably the author, but wow. So these are books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, which is basically a series about vampires set in a fantasy world. 6 Crimson Roses is the one that I read first. That's a very short novella story which focuses on a side character who appears in Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So that's why I read the novella in between books 1 and 2. I don't think you necessarily have to, but I did enjoy reading about Vale. I gave this one 3 stars because I don't love short stories. It kind of like, it didn't drag, but I was just kind of like, yeah, this is alright, so let's just read it and get to the second book. I can't remember the female character's name. I think it might have been Lilith or something. I'm going to call her Lilith from now on. So Vale and Lilith, they get together, obviously, in this novella, and then they make their way to where the second book is set. And so my problem with kind of both of these books is that the two of them show up, and then Vale does a little bit in this book, in Ashes, but not much. And then Lilith, she can't speak their language properly or fluently, and so she doesn't really say anything. She doesn't get any lines, maybe like 1 or 2 words or something in there. I thought she was going to be a much bigger deal, and that's why I read the novella, but it turns out she was barely relevant in the second book, so there was absolutely no need for it. And because I really enjoyed both of them when I read Roses, I was really hoping to see much more of them in Ashes and see them bonding with the main characters and stuff, but that just didn't happen. So that was really, really disappointing, and it made me not dislike the novella more, but it just made me like not care about it, because what was the point? And I really liked Lilith as a character, like the idea of her, and so I was looking forward to seeing her interact more with the characters in Ashes. Unfortunately, she didn't. Maybe she will in the future, in the rest of the series, but not in this one. It felt like the author was kind of just like done with her story and then didn't really want to focus on her anymore. What is the point in writing a whole novella for her? So the novella, Roses, got 3 stars. I'm not saying the whole title every single time because they're so long. And then I went straight into Ashes, which I kind of buddy read with a friend, but not really. I read it a lot faster than she did. And I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't as good as Serpent, the first book, and I feel like some things just really dragged on. This is one of those books that has a lot of travelling, and because these characters can fly, they were flying over the forests and deserts and stuff, stopping to land and to sleep, and then taking off again and then flying again, and it was just so repetitive and I didn't love it. I still really enjoyed both of the main characters. I should probably remember their names because I've recapped these books. Rain and Araya. Still really enjoyed them. Not so much together this time. I don't really feel like they had as much chemistry in this second book, but this does tend to happen with my slow burn ships. When they get together, I kind of lose interest. And that's on me, probably. Or maybe authors should continue that chemistry even when characters are together. Something that I liked about this one as well was that when it wrapped up, not everything was resolved. It's clearly ongoing, but what I really like is that this is going to be a series of duologies, and so we don't need to focus on Araya and Rain anymore, because if they're going to be as boring as they were in this second book, I think it's time to move on, and that is what we were doing. So I'm looking forward to the next duology, because I think there's going to be like some enemies to lovers drama, and I love that. I thought there was going to be a bit of that in this book, but there wasn't so much. Araya also in this book didn't get much of a chance to like command any armies like I thought she was going to, so that was a bit disappointing. But I still really enjoyed spending time with these characters, and there was also a really creepy like sequence of events in this one, and I was so creeped out. I don't really want to go into any detail, but I cannot deal with creepy children in my books. So that was those 2, 3 and 4 stars respectively. I will be doing a video recap of Ashes at some point soon, ready for the 3rd book to come out. I've already recapped the 1st book on my channel a couple of weeks ago, so you can check out that video if you would like. I reread Artificial Condition while my husband and I were driving up to the Peak District. We were listening to it on audio and I love this one. I gave this one 4 stars. It's kind of maybe a 5. I first listened to it earlier on this year and then now I'm rereading the series because I want my husband to listen to it all because I know that he'll like them and he is loving them. This is the second Murderbot book and this is the one that Art is introduced in, and Art is my favourite character, so absolutely love this one. There's no point in really talking about the story because it's such a short book, but essentially Murderbot is a murderous robot which has like severed itself from the governing module that is meant to command it because it didn't agree with like all the bloodshed and murdering and stuff that it had to do. It basically just wants to sleep and watch its TV shows, which I can relate to. And in this one, Murderbot is travelling on a ship called Art and the two form a bond, and it's just really fun. It's a really fun series and it's really, really well narrated. So if you're going to read this series, I would recommend the audiobook if you can listen to audiobooks because it's absolutely brilliantly done. And we're currently halfway through book 3, which will be my last reread of the series, and then I can start reading fresh. Yeah, really love this series and I'm glad that I'm taking my time and rereading them because they're so much fun. I read Stolen Lives, which is a non-fiction book about modern slavery in the UK. Kind of all over Europe really, but mainly in the UK. The author kind of focuses on a couple of people's stories, but this is mainly like a factual book telling you how the UK is responding to modern slavery and what it's doing to prevent it, and what it does, or what the court system does with victims of modern day slavery who do manage to escape, and how it's definitely not a perfect system. It's actually quite awful. We could definitely be doing better. So really enjoyed this. It's very dry and factual. I thought this was going to be focusing more on the people because it's called Stolen Lives, but it's very much about the facts, which are also very important. So yeah, I enjoyed reading this one and I thought it was really well done. I gave it 4 stars just because of the way it was written. Sometimes the author was just listing facts. It felt like I was reading a Wikipedia page, and that's fine. That's like the way that she wanted to do it, but it wasn't like my preferred way of consuming this information. Yeah, 4 stars for this one. Enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy such a topic, and I feel like I learned a lot, so I'd highly recommend this one. That will be going on my non-fiction shelf. Another book that I decided to reread completely on a whim was Catching Jordan by Miranda Keneally. This one came out I think in like 2011 when I just started booktubing and book blogging, and it's the first in a contemporary series. I've never actually carried on with the series and I wanted to reread this one because it was on my shelf. I wanted to know if I wanted to keep it, and I wanted to know if I would ever carry on with the series, and I'm pleased to say like I probably would, to be honest. So this is about a teenage girl called Jordan who is a, forgive me because it's very much sports focused and I'm not a sporty person. I especially don't know anything about American football, but she is a quarterback on an American football team, and a new guy joins the school and he is competing for this quarterback position. He is like I don't even know what you call it, like deputy quarterback, I suppose. He did really well in his old school and she gets a bit of a crush on him. Everyone else crushes on him as well, but Jordan has always been seen as like one of the guys because she's on the football team, and she's kind of battling with having a crush, which I don't think has ever really happened to her before, and also with the guys suddenly treating her a bit differently. It was a really interesting dynamic to read about because this is such an old YA book. There were some things in here where I was a bit like, wouldn't really say that now, it's not aged so well, but it did actually hold up mostly. I really enjoyed reading about Jordan's relationship with her father because he doesn't really support her football career. She wants to go to college and play for the college football team and basically become a football league star, but he's really worried about that because he knows like what these college guys can be like and how disrespectful they can be. And there's also a best friend in here who I had completely forgotten about and I really enjoyed reading about actually. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. The next books follow different people, so we wouldn't be following Jordan and the football team again that I know of. I probably wouldn't buy them for myself. I'd probably be donating this one, but I would get these on my Kindle, so I'm probably going to look them up to see if they're on like Prime or Kindle Unlimited, or if I can just get the books for cheap or something, because I think there are like 6 or 7 books in this series, which is wild. Miranda Keneally just carried on, and yeah, I would like to read them. They are fun, really easy reads, and I think that's what I needed at this point in time. And then I'm going to talk about the book that I rated 1 star because I want to end on high. So I rated The Ministry of Time 1 star. I really didn't enjoy it. I ended up skim reading towards the end because I just found it so boring. So this is about a woman who works for the government in the future, And the government has sussed out time travelling, and they are bringing people who would have died in the past into the present to try and experiment on the whole time travel thing and see how it works without disrupting the original timeline. Because obviously if they brought someone who was going to live in the past, that could potentially mess up timelines and stuff. So they bring people who are just about to die. And the main character works for this branch of the government as a bridge, and that means that she is there to kind of help the people who are brought over kind of acclimatise to the present day. And so she has to introduce like the internet to them and all of these like new things. And she gets paired with a guy called Graham, who I think was meant to die in the 1800s or something on an Arctic mission. And this book is very much about their relationship building and their romance. I did enjoy it up to a point. It just got very repetitive, very kind of dry, and it was very slow going. And so around the 75% mark, I was just kind of like, I'm over this now, I want this book to end. I felt like it was too long. So I've given it 1 star, unfortunately. I know that this is on like so many best books of the year so far lists, but it was dull. So I'm sad, but I'm glad I tried it, I guess. I do tend to really enjoy time travel stories, just not this one apparently. And now we are on to the last book of the wrap up, which is good because my camera battery is about to die. I just finished Last Seen Online by Lauren James. This is a YA contemporary thriller true crime sort of thing. It's about a girl called Delilah who meets Sawyer at school. They have a very awkward encounter at theatre club. She finds out that Sawyer's mum is a movie star. I think she knew this already. Actually, they live in Hollywood, so she's aware of this kind of stuff. And Sawyer's godfather, Rob, is currently in prison for murdering one of their fellow co-stars. So the 3 of them, the mum, the godfather and the dead guy, they were all in a TV show together. And so Delilah starts researching the fandom online. She finds a blog that was very, very dedicated to this like trio and what was going on, and then later on the murder, and documented the whole thing. So it's told in mixed media format. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very thrilling. Some of it was a bit like unrealistic, but that's okay. I really felt seen with the online drama stuff. There were like basically shout outs to Miss Scribe and Cassandra Clare, which I thought was hilarious. We all know, well, you probably don't, but you may know about those dramas that were happening. And there went my camera battery, so hopefully this is almost the same angle. I really enjoy reading about fandom drama stuff because fans can be wild, and to be fair, back in my Vampire Diaries days, I was one of those fans, but I didn't ever do anything as crazy as these people do in here. So it turns into like a murder mystery kind of crime thing where Delilah and Sawyer are trying to figure out if Rob is innocent or not, and figure out if they need to clear his name. Some of the stuff in here was very unrealistic, I think I just said, but there was nothing that was sort of too out there where I was like, this is so unbelievable, I need to put the book down. Something that I didn't love, like the only thing that I didn't really like about this book was the ending. I feel like it didn't come out of nowhere. I saw it coming. The main character was getting along with stuff, and all of a sudden we were like, bam, this is the villain reveal, and that part came out of nowhere. I feel like there could have been a bit more of a build up to that, instead of her just confronting the villain and then the villain kind of spilling everything just out of nowhere. So that was a bit weird. And then there was a really long epilogue, which I feel could have just been like an extra chapter rather than an epilogue. I don't know. I also feel like this book could have been written in first person instead of third. I felt like the third person writing was a little bit clunky, but I'm not really like here to critique actual writing techniques because I don't know what I'm talking about. I just felt like at times I was a bit thrown by this being in third person. So I do wonder if Lauren James had to switch it from first to third, or if they are more comfortable with first person maybe, and the third was like a new thing. I have read one of their books before, or 2 of their books, but I can't remember how those were written. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I actually really love this cover as well. It's very pretty. I'm glad that I picked it up. I probably won't be keeping this because I'm not going to reread it realistically, but it's one that I'm glad that I read. And then I'm just going through my list quickly. I think that's all of the books that I read in September, and there are quite a few of them, so I'm very pleased with myself. I feel like I had a really solid reading month, and I'm very pleased, like I said. I'm really looking forward to October now, and I'm just really pleased with like all of the ratings in this stack, apart from the 1 star obviously, but that's not here, and all the different genres that I was reading as well. I feel like it's a really good mix, and I feel like I've got my reading zone back again. I'm looking forward to seeing what October will bring. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these, tell me your thoughts, tell me how many books you read in September. I would love to know, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.